Waste Reduction Council to present information on the price of plastics. Bobbie is admin and events coordinator at the Waste Reduction Council, where she answers the recycling hotline, oversees all administration, and plans various events throughout the year. Last year, they facilitated repair cafes in 7 cities across the province. Bobbie also works part-time for SWANA. She just told me what that is, but I'll let you find that out from her if you want more information. Northern Lights Division, and they offer landfill training in Saskatchewan. Bobbie lives in Saskatoon with their 2 dogs, and we will have questions that Bobbie can answer after our talk. So, welcome, Bobbie.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Am I loud enough? Please let me know if I'm not loud enough. So my name is Bobbie, and as Judy said, I'm here to talk about plastics price, understanding the environmental cost, and how to reduce it. So I recently made up my own new job title, so now I am the events coordinator and finance administrator, which means I do a lot of very different things, and I don't know how to describe that. So about me. So, as I mentioned, I work for the Saskatchewan Waste Reduction Council. We have a recycling hotline and an online waste reduction hub database. So you can search online for a wide variety of materials and find places to recycle, donate, compost, or repair those items. Our website's really handy. And if you can't figure out the website, you can call me and I can find somewhere for you. We also organize repair cafes and a whole bunch of other things. Repair cafes there. And then, as Judy mentioned, I also work for SWANA Northern Lights. Most of the time, if you've seen me at a SWANA event, I'm probably doing this. I do the conference support, and so SWANA administers a lot of landfill training. So it is kind of the same world as the Sask Waste Reduction Council, but the other side of the coin, looking more specifically at landfills and not just waste reduction. I also have a very small side business where I sew and sell cloth menstrual pads. It's called Trash Panda Reusables. Here are my 2 dogs. I love them very much. Norma Jean goes to the office with me. So if you're ever in the 220 building, you should probably come say hi to her because this is her headshot because she works at the office. And in what very little spare time I have, I ref roller derby. So that's me. So I'm here to talk about plastics price. So we're going to talk about the environmental impacts of plastic, issues that exist with plastic recycling, the path ahead, and then some ideas and tips on how to reduce plastic in your own home. So plastic production, I'm sure most of you know, but we don't always think about the fact that plastics are all made from fossil fuels, which are, of course, a limited resource. And extracting, transporting, and refining those fossil fuels releases greenhouse gases and contributes to deforestation, all of which impacts the climate crisis. So over here on the right is a chart from the Center for International Environmental Law on annual emissions from resin and fiber production. This sits a little too high level for me, honestly. I'm not that technical, but producing plastic is contributing to climate change. Plastic pollution, and not just producing it, but the pollution side of it. So we estimate that it takes about 1,000 years for plastic to break down. We don't really know because plastic didn't exist 1,000 years ago, but we do know that it doesn't decompose. It just breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces. So micro and macro plastics. I'm sure we've all heard about microplastics or nanoplastics, but definition says macroplastics are bigger than 5 millimeters and microplastics are 5 millimeters or less. And then there are nanoplastics, which are a nanometer. Plastic pollution. When we talk about macro macroplastics, we've all seen it. We've all seen a plastic cup on a beautiful, serene hike, or garbage in parking lots. There's plastic all around us. The impacts of macroplastics are pretty obvious. Animals can eat them and get stuck in them. They can damage plant life, and I don't have my notes. There was something else, but the damage of macroplastics are pretty obvious. Oh, I was going to say, I really wanted to include a photo. I came across recently some photos of hermit crabs that have stopped moving into new shells and have started moving into pieces of plastic litter, and it is heartbreaking and awful, but I couldn't find any photos that I could include in my slides, so if you haven't seen it, you should Google hermit crabs with plastic shells. So microplastics, some more highly technical charts for you that I barely understand. So over here, do I have a laser pointer? I do have a laser pointer. On the left, we have a chart from the World Health Organization. They did a very long report about dietary and inhalation exposure to nano and microplastic particles and the potential implications for human health. I think what this chart is saying is that they've found microplastics everywhere. I don't remember anymore what that chart was supposed to say. And then over here, on the other side, we have a chart about the life cycle, essentially, of microplastics. Depending on the type of plastic, they break down in different ways. But as I mentioned, they don't break down and turn back into oil and go back into the ground that we can mine again. They just turn into smaller plastic. Plastic recycling. So Canadians discard over 3 million tons of plastic waste each year. That figure does include all kinds of plastic waste, not just plastic packaging, but 3 million tons of plastic are discarded in Canada. So here we have, this chart is plastics that are produced or sold in Canada, and then the chart on the left is plastics that are discarded in Canada. So as you can see, not all of it gets discarded. There are things that are created and sold and manufactured that stay in use. But when you look at the squares, the packaging square doesn't really get much smaller. Compared, like construction goes from 1,200 kilotons to 175 kilotons, but packaging doesn't really go down very much. So roughly 25% of this number, roughly 25% of that is collected for recycling. Collected for diversion. Some of the reasons that it is such a low number is that a lot of plastic isn't recyclable by design. Either the products aren't labeled with what kind of plastic they are, or they're made out of mixed materials. Canadian geography, unfortunately, contributes to the reason that a lot of things don't get recycled. We have a lot of very remote communities in Canada, and a lot of places that are very far away from recycling facilities. And so at what point is it worth shipping things and spending fossil fuels to ship them to a facility? And of course, things aren't always locally accepted. Again, when we're talking about recycling facilities, what different facilities accept varies by region. So approximately 9% of plastic waste in Canada is actually recycled. Some of the reasons for that are contamination. It might be unclean. If you have an empty ketchup bottle and you just toss it in your recycling bin without rinsing it at all, it likely isn't getting recycled, because by the time it gets to the facility, it's moldy and disgusting. Or it's not really recyclable to begin with. Also, the amount of plastic waste that we actually recycle really depends on the market. Unfortunately, if there's no one wanting to buy the recycled product, it's not going to go anywhere. So it's related to that previous chart. So you can see all the resin in products staying in Canada, and use applications. approximately 86% of plastic produced in Canada is landfilled, and then 9% is recycled, another 4% is incinerated. But yeah, this is a much bigger block than what's actually recycled. So, now that I've depressed you all and made you all very sad, now what? Where do we go from here? So as a society, we need to shift from a linear economy to a circular economy. So linear economy is also referred to as a take, make, throw? Take, make, waste. Thank you, Joanne. A recycling economy, recycling economy, you take it, you remake it, and eventually you throw it. In a circular economy, things just stay. They don't get thrown away at all. We also need to keep in mind that governments and corporations make significantly more impact than any individual can, both in terms of those plastic waste numbers. Those are not household waste numbers. That's Canada-wide. But also in terms of change. If governments and industry don't change, then nothing really will change. However, individuals can impact the governments and corporations to make a change. You can vote and write your representatives and volunteer and show up to things like this. We also need to rethink the phrase reduce, reuse, recycle. It's really not clear. A lot of people, when you say that, people don't really know what you mean. And it's often used to identify consumers as being responsible, but it really should be a shared responsibility with producers. It shouldn't be on you to reduce, reuse, recycle. And different types of plastic need different implementations and have different urgencies. It's not one size fits all. So instead, I present refuse, reduce, reuse, resell, repair, refurbish, remanufacture, repurpose, recycle, recovery, and remine. Think that'll catch on? Obviously not. But when you think reduce, reuse, recycle, think these things. So I love this chart. I was trying to adapt it into much less words, and I put it because it's really fantastic. So in this column, you have things the consumer should be doing to make that action happen, and things that the producers should be doing to make that happen. And they're sorted by actor choice. So choices that, like in the beginning, the first decisions, kind of your middle, mid-life decisions, and then end-of-life decisions. And I also want to talk about positive change is happening. It's not all doom and gloom when we talk about plastic. The federal single-use plastic prohibition is kind of in the middle of happening. It's a multi-year phased-in project, but I think it's supposed to be fully in place by December of this year. There's also the Federal Plastics Registry, which is still in the commenting period. It's not quite up and running yet, but it is largely made up of industry, so that's exciting. And that will be, industry will report how much plastic they're reducing, how much plastic they're recycling, and I think there was supposed to be incentives for more recycling. But it's still only beginning, so we'll see where it goes. Yes, the Federal Plastics Registry is requiring producers to report plastics. I got these mixed up in my head. The Canada Plastics Pact is made up largely of industry, and they're working together to make the plastics industry in Canada more circular. And a little closer to home, we have the Saskatchewan Solid Waste Management Strategy. Our province is working towards waste reduction, and the City of Saskatoon has a waste reduction and diversion plan. So they're also working towards waste reduction. And we have a brand new SK Recycles program for flexible plastics and styrofoam, which you can now drop off at Sarcan. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, so you probably all know about this, but it is exciting, positive change. The City of Victoria in BC BC, they have a new bylaw that requires businesses to serve food and beverage in reusable ware to dine-in patrons. Even McDonald's, every single restaurant in Victoria, if you're eating in, it has to be on reusable dishes. Takeout is another story, but that's still exciting. The province of BC also has a plastics ban where they're phasing out certain single-use plastic items. Vancouver, the city of Vancouver has a return it to reuse it and recycle it cup program, so you can go to like Tim Hortons or Starbucks and get a reusable cup, and then there are a bunch of like bins around the city that you can drop it off in to be washed and reused. Another really cool program is called EcoTank. They have refillable washer fluid in BC, Alberta, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. So these are at gas stations, and you can fill your gas and then fill up your washer tank and not buy a plastic jug or washer tank. And there's a company called Friendlier, which is reusable food packaging. And they're all over southwestern Ontario, Quebec, and Vancouver. But places like the Toronto Zoo and U Ottawa have reusable dishes. So students at the U Ottawa cafeteria get reusable, washable take-up containers. The city sports complex in Toronto, which this one really, that was supposed to be Guelph grocery store. Oops, Guelph grocery store, not whatever that says. But a Toronto sports complex, I got really excited thinking about this. Imagine if the Saskatoon Centre gave you your hot dog in a dish that could be washed and reused instead of garbage. It's possible, other cities are doing it. So, zero waste-ish. Into more personal journey options. I don't like to talk about zero waste because zero waste just really isn't possible. It isn't really a thing due to accidental waste, necessary waste, and upstream waste. So I like to talk about zero waste-ish. We're doing the best we can. We're not doing 100%. I feel like those slides are in the wrong order, but I also want to talk about the benefits of plastic because as much as I'm talking about why plastic is awful and we should stop using it, I also want to talk about why we should be using it. It's lightweight, durable, non-porous. There are a lot of different kinds of plastic that have different qualities, and so there are certain products that like I can't think of a material that works better than a plastic Rubbermaid bin. It's airtight, it's watertight, it lasts, it's durable, it's lightweight. I mean, sure, I could have a wooden crate on the top shelf in my basement, but do I want to be lowering that down onto my head? Not really. And so, yeah, there are certain products, my very own kitchen compost pail, that certain products are just going to be made out of plastic. We're not going to get away from that. And that's okay. Plastic is not evil. It's not a bad thing. You just need less of it. So, if you want to reduce your own personal plastics, where to start? Do your own little waste audit. Collect all your garbage for a couple weeks, and then think through it. It made me hate my life the first time I did this, so you should all do it too. Make small changes. You don't go from average consumption lifestyle to zero waste in a week. You want to start with small changes. You want to build habits. I like to tell friends, pick one new product to replace and get used to using that, and then pick a new product to replace. Don't go all in right away. And start with easy things. Start with things that you're already out of or things that are easy to use. I use toothpaste tabs. My partner still uses toothpaste. I've tried so hard to make him switch to toothpaste tabs, and he hates them. And it's not easy. I have given up. He uses toothpaste. It's not that big of a deal. And do what you're able to. Not only do we all have different preferences, people have health concerns and allergies, and there is income disparities. So it's totally okay. It's so easy to look up zero waste Instagrammers and feel like you're the worst person alive. But you don't know what their life is like. You don't know what their privileges are like. So do what you're able to. My example for this is I'm celiac. I can't eat any gluten. I can't have any, like my food cannot touch gluten ever at all. And so I can't buy a lot of things bulk. If I go to the bulk store, about 2/3 of it is just not safe for me to shop in. And so I talk to my zero waste friends, and they're like, oh, I bought this at the bulk store, and I bought this, and I'm like, oh, why aren't I doing that? And then I go there, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go and buy that in some plastic packaging because it's not worth my health. So, reducing plastic at home. Back to my R word chart. No one's gonna remember all of those 9 words, but here are some things to reduce plastic at home. Refuse. Don't bring it home. Bring your own grocery bag to the store, which, I mean, at this point, I think we're all in the habit of. But also, if your dentist gives you a free toothbrush, say no thanks and leave it there. Just refuse it. And reduce it. Use less, use it for longer, share use with others. Some examples of this. I'm blanking. I'm sure we can all think of things that, you don't need. I mean, I'll talk about it a bit more later, but saran wrap. The way my mother goes through saran wrap drives me crazy. Just use less of it, or use it for what you don't need to replace it every time you open the bowl to grab a snack. Use less of it. And then there are other products that, you can share with others. Making friends with your neighbors, or finding a community page that you can share use of a lot of things. Does every single home need to own a pressure washer? Probably not. But you can share those with people who live nearby, or through programs like the Library of Things. Reuse and resell. Buy stuff secondhand, give away what you're not going to use. Not everything needs to go to the landfill, and not everything needs to be bought brand new. Repair and refurbish. Make it work again. Repurpose. Take it apart and use parts of it. Especially when it comes to plastic. Plastic is a really awesome material. It has a lot of really cool features that other materials don't have. So don't just throw out plastic. I know a lot of people will save produce clamshells or yogurt containers to start seedlings in. Don't throw it out and buy some plastic seedling trays. Repurpose it. And then if you're going to recycle it, don't wish cycle it. I know I could probably do a whole other presentation on how to recycle properly, and I know it's a lot, and I know it's confusing, but there are resources out there. And again, I think, if you're not sure how to recycle properly, learning one new thing and implementing that helps. So, here are some ideas from my own. If anyone heard my interview on CBC this morning, I said that my friends make fun of my house for being full of weird crunchy stuff. So here's some photos of my weird crunchy stuff. Reusable produce bags. This photo is actually from a former coworker at the Saskatchewan Waste Reduction Council. Her name was Meg, and she moved away to New Zealand and broke my heart. But she made and sold reusable produce bags, and I have a couple of them, and I bought them 7 or 8 years ago, and I love them. Another photo from Meg, because my Ziploc bags just aren't as aesthetic, but this was her stash of Ziploc bags that she's going to reuse. They don't have to be a jumbled mess like they are in my house. And then here is a lovely example of repurposing. So she had said that she had bought some red apricots and felt bad because they were in a plastic bag, but then she realized that it's one of those resealable bags, and it's basically a Ziploc bag. So when she was done, she rinsed it out and kept using it like a Ziploc bag. Try to think outside of the garbage bin. And then bulk products. This is my olive oil, which is a great plastic-free example because I buy giant glass bottles of olive oil, and then I put it in a mason jar on the counter, which is my daily olive oil bottle. And tea. I love loose leaf tea, and I will bring a random mismatch of assorted containers into bulk tea places. Currently my obsession is McQuarrie's on Broadway, and fill up. One of those, this one in the back, was not filled. I bought it brand new like that, but I bought it pausing and looking and thinking, you know, oh, I can buy olive oil in plastic or I can buy it in glass. And I think there are upsides and downsides to both. Neither is perfect, but if you are trying to reduce your plastic, consider non-plastic packaging. Razors. Plastic, I mean, this is one of those funny things when you get into the zero waste world. A lot of the deep zero waste people are like, what razor? They just stop shaving. And that's fair and that's valid, and I'm not judging that. But if you are a razor person, you can get a safety razor, like I'm not even sure if my grandparents would have used one or my great-grandparents, but it's fully metal, and you get these tiny little metal blades, and they're way cheaper than Gillette razor refills. They're great. Deodorant. This is one of those weird crunchy things. It does not look anything like what people expect it to. But I have a little glass jar of routine deodorant, so I can buy it bulk, and you just scoop it out of the jar. And I also have a little crystal rock of deodorant. I never know how to describe this to people, but you get it wet and you put it on, and it works great. And I bought it in a cardboard box, which was recycled, so it was pretty much zero waste. And this is my second one. My first one lasted me 5 years. Reusable menstrual products. Again, if you heard my news interview this morning, I kind of went on a little tangent about reusable menstrual products, but this is where I started on my personal zero waste journey, because I was so frustrated with the menstrual products that were available, and went researching and discovered menstrual cups, which 7 years ago hardly anyone talked about, but these days you can buy at pretty much any drugstore, and there's usually several brands available. And also reusable cloth menstrual pads. So, little personal backstory. I had gone looking, discovered menstrual cups, learned about menstrual pads, fell in love with the Diva Cup, but I couldn't find, back in 2018, I couldn't find anyone selling menstrual pads that was, even in Canada, I found a couple of US companies, but then you come back to like, this shit wasn't really worth it. And I sew a lot. It's been my biggest hobby for years. So I was like, I can make my own, how hard can that be? And I ordered a whole bunch of stuff. And then I realized that you don't order enough to make yourself a stash, you order enough to make 10 people a stash. So I started selling them. I started a little business called Trash Panda Reusables, and I was selling them. I do find that now they are widely available. I think there are 2 or 3 different brands of reusable menstrual pads at London Drugs, and Better Good has a bunch of options. So I don't really work on them anymore. I have a bunch and I'll sell them, and if friends want them, I make them. Like it's not gone, but it's not worth me putting effort into anymore because it's become more widely available, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want this to be my career, I wanted this to be available. So this photo has a pad wrapper and a couple of pads, which are, I guess technically they're not plastic free because they have polyester, but they're reusable and they're significantly less wasteful, and they work out to be a lot cheaper. Other bathroom products, dental stuff. This is my bamboo toothbrush, my little package of toothpaste tabs. I used to take them out of the bag and put them in a glass container, and then my friend asked me why I had an unlabeled bottle of pills on my bathroom counter. So now I keep them in their little bag. I also have, this is my dental floss. It's a little glass jar, and the refills for it come in a cardboard box. So again, all of these are completely plastic free. And my saran wraps are replacements. I have a bunch of beeswax wraps, and then I also have some bowl covers. Again, the bowl covers are not technically plastic free because they're waterproof plastic, but it's better than throwing saran wrap out all the time like my mother does. Some other alternatives to plastic at home. Using metal or glass water bottles, wooden or bamboo cutting boards, ceramic, stoneware, or glass. Actually, I'm going to back up to cutting boards a little because a while back people talked about how wooden cutting boards hold on to bacteria and they're not as good, and I've seen some recent studies that plastic cutting boards actually hold on to as much, if not more, bacteria than a wooden cutting board. But I saw TikTok, go ahead and judge me, but I saw TikTok that was talking about how using a plastic cutting board will put microplastics in your food. And this is one of those, I'm like, I don't know if I care. That sounds really bad in this context, but like, I can only do so much, I'm only one person. But at the same time, you know, if you need to replace your cutting board, maybe think about some non-plastic options. You can also use non-plastic dishes. If you have small children, I would recommend plastic dishes, but if you don't, there's glass or stainless steel food containers, stainless steel or bamboo travel cutlery sets, bar soaps and shampoo bars. Bar soaps are one of those kind of like zero waste plastic free things. Like, how did we get away from having soap wrapped in cardboard? But yeah, you can also buy solid shampoo bars. There are a bunch of different products that come in compostable cardboard tubes. I have a lip balm in a little cardboard tube. You like push it up from the bottom, and it's great. And when I'm done with it, it's supposed to be compostable. And then there are a bunch of different products now that you can buy in plastic-free packaging. Another one of those really fun zero waste world things is when you get really deep into it, you talk about, I was telling somebody that I found a new paper towel brand that isn't wrapped in plastic, it's wrapped in paper. And I was like, this makes so much sense. Like, of course you can just wrap paper towel in plastic, or paper, not in plastic. And they were like, you use paper towel? I'm not perfect. Also, you get really deep into it, and you don't even use toilet paper anymore. But I personally am not there. I'm zero waste-ish. So, that is my presentation. Thank you, everyone. Actually, well, there are a whole bunch of links and resources. Everything I referenced in the presentation is in here. I don't know if the slides will be made available, but if you want these, my email is right there. Sask Waste Reduction's website, like I mentioned, has that really cool Waste Reduction Hub database, and we are on social media. So, thank you, everyone.